At my wife's work party, everything seemed
Until her
perfect.
co-worker smirked
"You don't own
and
her,"
whispered.
Then right in front
He
of me,
slid his hand under her dress.
I couldn't hold it in anymore. What happened next turned the night into a war
betrayal
zone and revenge.
It was just another Friday night.
The kind that felt mundane,
Predictable
like clockwork. My wife Rachel
had asked me to attend her
an
work
annual
party,
event where her co-workers gathered
corporate
at a
venue
posh
to celebrate another successful year.
I was never particularly fond of these
But for Rachel, I
events. always made an effort. We lived in a cozy
tucked
townhouse
away in a
quiet neighborhood. The living room was warm, bathed
Yellow
in soft
light from the lamps that lined the walls.
The furniture was comfortable,
worn in places, but
for to
perfect.
people
who
had shared their lives for over 8 years.
The scent of vanilla candles lingered,
and
in
the
the
fireplace crackled
as we sat on the
gently.
couch sharing a glass of wine.
We had the kind of marriage
At
people
least that's how it
envied.
appeared on the surface.
Her laughter filled the
As she
room.
told me about the upcoming party,
She seemed so excited.
you know, the usual.
Just a few drinks, some dancing, and a lot
She
of
said,
gossip. Her eyes gleaming as she smiled
I
at
smiled
back, not thinking twice. Everything was normal, perfect even. But as the evening went on,
subtle
unease began to stir within me.
There were little
Her
things.
phone buzzing every
The
few
way she would
minutes
quickly glance
before
at
slipping it back into
and
her
the
bag.
constant
mention of her colleague Evan.
It wasn't unusual for her to talk
But
about
tonight
work.
felt different. There was an unfamiliar edge to her
When she
excitement.
mentioned him, I pushed the thought aside. It was nothing. Just my mind running wild. The party was at a high-end bar in the city. The place was packed with her colleagues, all laughing, chatting, and clinking glasses. I could feel the tension in
As
my
we walked
chest,
through
and
the
that's when I
doors.
saw him.
Evan.
He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a smug, self-assured smile that never seemed to
He
fade.
looked at Rachel
with a warmth that felt almost too familiar, too comfortable. As the night progressed, I noticed how often Evan would hover near Rachel. Their conversations were intimate,
easy,
like they shared a bond
secret.
that seemed to exclude me entirely.
At
first, I tried to ignore telling
it.
myself I was being paranoid, but then I saw them again. She laughed a little too hard at his jokes. He touched her in a way that lingered just a moment too long. My stomach twisted. Then came the moment that shattered everything. We were standing near the bar, chatting with a few of Rachel's when Evan strolled over. He didn't even look at me. His gaze locked solely on Rachel. "Hey, Rachel," he said, a playful glint in his eye. He flashed me a quick, barely noticeable smirk before turning back to her. "I hope your husband doesn't stealing you away for a dance." Rachel, in her typical bubbly fashion, laughed and waved him off. "Don't worry, it's just a dance," she said before turning to me. Her eyes seemed to say something I didn't want to acknowledge. But before I could respond, Evan moved toward her, sliding a little too confidently around her waist. And then just as casually as if it were
He said,
nothing,
"You don't own
you
her."
know. A cold chill ran through
My
me, blood turning to ice. And then in front of me, Evan
of
slid
everyone,
his hand
beneath
lower,
the
fabric of Rachel's
just
dress,
a hair's
breadth from her skin. She stiffened, but she didn't pull away. She didn't say anything. It was as if time stopped. The music, the laughter, everything faded away. My chest tightened, my vision with the rush of blood pounding in my ears. I felt a fire building inside, humiliation and a cold, bitter clarity. The room around me seemed to close in as I stood frozen. Every inch of me screamed at her to slap him, to do anything, something, but instead she just stood there. It was a slap to my face, but not as hard as what followed. Evan pulled her closer, his hand still where it shouldn't have been. He leaned in, whispering something into her ear that made her smile. A smile that I hadn't seen in a long time. I could feel my heart shattering in my chest. The crack of it was louder than anything else. The weight of it threatened to crush me. Without thinking, I stormed toward them. My steps were fueled by a combination
and
of
seething
disbelief. I gripped Evan's shoulder, and
the force of it
knocking him off balance.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
I spat my voice a low growl. He looked at me, a dark amusement flickering in his eyes. He wasn't afraid. Relax, man, he said casually, brushing off the shove. She's just having a little fun. You know how it is. Rachel, her face flushed, stepped back but didn't say anything. She didn't defend me. She didn't defend herself. Evan laughed and took another step toward her. You can't control her, man, he said with a sly grin. She's not yours. Something inside me snapped. All I could feel was the heat of betrayal, of humiliation, and the desperate burning need for revenge. After that night, everything changed. The man I had been reserved, non-confrontational, was gone. I became something else. I became someone who would stop to get what was mine back. I started watching. Watching her. Watching him. Every move, every glance, every interaction was a clue. I found out things I didn't want to know. Her late-night phone calls that were the messages she deleted before I could even see them. And Evan always lurking in the background, always just a little too comfortable. But I didn't act right away. No, I needed to plan, to think this through. I needed to break them piece by piece. The day came when everything fell into place. I knew where they'd be, and I knew how to make them I'd pay. Waited long enough. I had all the evidence. I knew her secrets, and I had made sure that Evans for the world to see. The confrontation came at her work party the following year. Only this time the roles were reversed. I was calm, collected, everything Rachel wasn't expecting. The moment I walked in, I could see the fear in her eyes. And Evan, his cocky smile faltered when he saw me approach. I laid it all each out. Piece of the puzzle falling her into affair, place. The lies, everything. The moment Rachel realized I had her evidence, world crumbled. She begged for mercy, but there was no mercy left in Evan. He watched helplessly as his reputation and career in one swift blow. He lost everything, but I was different. The man I had been was long gone. What remained was someone hardened by forged betrayal, in the flames of revenge. As I walked away from the wreckage of my marriage, echo of Rachel's sobs still ringing I felt in no my satisfaction. Ears. Justice perhaps, but no satisfaction. Revenge had given me power, but it had also taken something from me. Some betrayals don't break us. They build us into something stronger. Like the video if you think justice was served. Subscribe for more stories of betrayal and revenge.